welcome everyone to another edition to As Above, So Below Radio. I'm your host, Martin Hodgson, and it gives me great pleasure to have you tuning in today. When you get a chance, please visit the website holisticadvocate.com and sign up for my free newsletter. Also, take a moment to subscribe and become a member. You'll not only gain access to the commercial-free subscriber-based interviews, but also treat yourself to an assortment of fascinating people worth listening to. Today's guest is James Gilliland. James is a minister, a counselor, as well as an international lecturer and author of several books. In addition to appearing on several media outlets as well as hosting 2 online radio shows, James is also the founder of ECETI, an organization that specializes in the enlightened contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Join me in welcoming James as he discusses reuniting with our cosmic and divine heritage. Okay, first of all, James, I want to extend to you a warm welcome for being on As Above, So Below Radio. Now, for any of the listeners out there who may have an understanding as to what you do and who you are, but nonetheless, can you just give us a brief introduction on your background and, what got you started on your path towards being a facilitator of Eastern disciplines and a holistic healer, as well as running your organization, ECETI?
Yeah, it's a long story. I don't like self-promoting, but I'll do the best I can.
Sure.
But basically, I've had contact all my life, and I didn't understand it. But I've always had beings that would guide me and help me to understand humanity and even my family experiences to help me understand and deal with it and realize the underlying drive behind why people do things, because they have old wounds and traumas, past life traumas, old grudges, things like that. Mm-hmm. So, that was the beginning, I guess, as a kid. At age 5, I had bronchial pneumonia and almost died. And several times they told my parents that I probably wasn't going to make it through the night. And I had a being appeared to me, a woman dressed in blue that would stroke my head and talk to me. And then she finally gave me a substance that was like a clear substance, almost like ice cream, but it wasn't cold. And she told me to eat it, and then I wasn't sick after that, I didn't miss a day of school after that. Mm. So I thought, excuse me, that was kind of interesting. And then I didn't know who she was. Later I found out that she was Mary, but, I'm not Catholic, and mm-hmm. She's a universal being, but she was appearing there to help me get through. Mm-hmm. As she does a lot of children. She appears and helps out a lot of children and does healing work for them. Mm-hmm. But that was the first, I guess, otherworldly or experience where I was totally cognizant of what was going on very clearly. Then and then that just continued on with a lot of other experiences. I was very sensitive as a kid. Mm-hmm. I could feel what people, felt. I could hear what they thought, and what they said was something totally different. So it was really confusing for me, mm-hmm. In the beginning. And then I got indoctrinated into the system like everybody else, and went through the school system and got kind of dumbed down and beat down, by that system. Right. And then at the age 25, I had a drowning experience where I was out body surfing in about 6-foot waves, and the next thing you know, there was 25, 27-foot sneaker waves coming in, and mm-hmm. and so I got pounded by about three of those, and then I had to just release it and let go, mm-hmm. and then went into the light. But I went through the tunnel that everybody talks about, and went through a lot of planes and dimensions, ended up settling in this golden white light, this plane of just pure bliss. Mm-hmm. And just the love and the joy and the security there are beyond measure. I can't even explain it. Mm-hmm. And I had a conversation with this other consciousness and energy. It's like you're unique yet one. You're aware of yourself, but you're a light being, and you're part of a greater consciousness and energy, and you can converse with it and mm-hmm. have a conversation with it. And that's basically what happened.
Interesting. Now, you also have a website called ECETI.org, and you've written several books, one of which I'm reading is called Becoming Gods. Mm-hmm. How challenging was it to write this book, James? Because given that most of us have been brought up externalizing a deity and not realizing that we have a spark of a divine with us, how challenging was it for you to, write this book? And this book, by the way, was published in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
When, for the most part, you had some books out there dealing with, metaphysics and so forth, but this puts a different perspective on, um, let's say, how anyone would visualize a deity or a god. Because in effect, we're all gods and goddesses, right?
Exactly, and it the title did offend a lot of people. My first book is Reunion with Source, and I changed the title of that book, and then the second book was Becoming Gods because people couldn't handle that title. It was just too much for them at that time. And the first book was actually written in '82. And the second book was written, I think, a couple of years after that, and then I finally got it published in '96. But the information is as true today as it was back then, and they covered just about everything from, the rise of the tyrants, the suppression of healing technologies and other fearless technologies. It talked about the international banksters and where they were going, and the expanding sun, and the earth changes that were a result of that, of moving into a more highly energized place in the universe. I mean, all this stuff was covered back in '82, and was met with a lot of resistance. And then the Becoming Gods book kind of explains that no matter how hard you try, you can't separate yourself from omnipresence, that the source is all that is. It's omnipresent, and we can live the illusion. We're not gods over others to dominate others, because basically God is love, and love serves. It empowers others. It doesn't overpower others. But I mean, even using the word God now, it's gotten such a bad rap, and it's been so misunderstood, and we should put an S at the end of it, because in truth we've been totally interfered with by the gods, the ancient Anunnaki. And some were very benevolent, and some were a little misguided and messed up, So that's a long story in itself. I'd love to get into that one if you wanted to.
Sure. By the way, I just want to mention that in writing this book, I think was it channeled by you from an entity called Ezekiel, who we know in the Bible?
Well, basically, Ezekiel merged with a feminine energy by the name of Cassia. And then they ascended up to another level, and so now they have a merged vibration called Kazekiel, and so it's both male and female, and it's beyond duality, and it's a very just beautiful energy. And I asked some of the other beings that I was working with, some of the other masters, who is Kazekiel, and they refer to Kazekiel as the god of eternal bliss. And if people meditate on Kazekiel, and just for a little while, they usually just start laughing, almost uncontrollably sometimes, because it is such a blissful energy.
Interesting. Well, yes, I'd like to definitely hear that story that you had mentioned here. Well,
our ancient history, we have, humanity goes back over 650 million years, and that's been orchestrated or demonstrated by Michael Cremo and a lot of other archaeologists, where they found actually machine parts, gears, all kinds of things that go back, ornate gold chains, things of that nature that go back 650 million years. But that's another story. But the Earth has been colonized over and over and had to start over due to pole shifts and meteor impacts and other events, that have happened on the planet, great floods and things of that nature. So that's also well documented. And so we've had colonies come and go from the Earth. And so we're this huge genetic soup of the star nations. There's 12 main ones that were involved in bringing both human, plant, and animal genetics to the Earth. And there were things evolving here naturally as well. So it's a combination of genetics, and any scientist, if they really do the research, will tell you there's just way there's too many extremes, out there that have manifested that there's not enough time for it to evolve naturally. That a lot of things were brought or tinkered with or whatever, even the human genome. So, and so that's been going on for a long time. And then we have the story of the Anunnaki, which is those who came from heaven to earth, basically, and they came down, and their planet, was dying. They were having a lot of serious problems with their atmosphere. And so they found out that through mining the gold and ionizing it and getting it into the atmosphere, that they could actually survive, and heal their planet. And they had their own group that they brought with them called the Gigi that were there to help them mine. And there was a revolt, and they quit, and said, we're out of here. And so they ended up taking a knuckle dragger, the Neanderthal man that was here, and jumped up his genetics, added their genetics to his, and then created, a new civilization, basically. So what happened there in the beginning was kind of a win-win situation. The Neanderthal man got a huge uplink in genetics, and higher consciousness and energy, and a massive jump in evolution, and they got what they needed to save their planet. And there's a Council of 12 that actually operate under universal law. They're very advanced beings. And what they did when they left a few of their own to oversee, this new civilization. And those we call the fallen ones. Those are the ones that fell. Not all of them fell, but a lot of them did. And then we have the story of Enki and Enlil. And Enki was the creator god, and the god of wanted to preserve people and preserve the civilization and keep things going. And actually, he even upgraded them even more and gave them even a higher genetic jump up as well. And then you had Enlil, which was he was more the military leader, and he was the destroyer god. And he wanted to just start over and get rid of humanity. And that's pretty well documented in Sitchin's work and other people's work as well. But and then they had their families, and so we had the original Hatfield and McCoys down here doing their thing, feuding over power and land and getting humans to involve themselves in it. And they started a lot of the religions, and it just became a big mess. And so basically, we're all a composite of that history and that genetic tinkering that's gone on, and now we're here today, acting out the same issues that the gods, had back in the day. And so I've been telling people, we don't have to do that. We can transcend the gods. We can choose universal, peace, brother, sisterly love, work in harmony with each other and the planet. We can wake up and we don't have to act out these dramas anymore or be pawns for, the control freaks and the people that are enslaving the masses through dependency and all the other nonsense that's going on.
Interesting. Now, you also run a ranch up there in the Mount Adams area near the town of Trout Lake, Washington, called the ECETI Ranch, right?
Yes.
Now, in reading the book, Becoming Gods, you made some remarkable prophecies in the book, some of which have come to pass, and what comes to mind here, let's see, are the mega quake and tsunami that occurred in Indonesia in 2004, the increasing frequencies of volcanoes and tornadoes, the shifting awareness of states wanting to secede from the Union. And what comes to mind here is Texas. They're actively seeking to become an independent nation. Let's see, and the collapse of banks, major companies, countries such as Iceland and Greece, and even Detroit. And I'm sure there's much more which I haven't mentioned here, but in your opinion, James, I mean, have we also shifted to a timeline or a positive timeline, or are we expected to still experience more Earth changes?
Well, the Earth changes are still happening. They're still escalating, and we're right on that, kind of like the top of the fence right now, where what's going to be determined what happens next is the collective consciousness and the individual consciousness and the choices that we make, both individually and collectively. So we're at that threshold right now, and I'm really happy about what happened with this Syrian conflict because, the warmongers and the war and disease profiteers were just pushing so hard to start World War III because they're part of that group that would just love to see, most of humanity gone and have a really small controllable group because, what they've done over the years is so dastardly that they are very afraid of most of humanity finding out and the consequences of that. So, so because of that fear, they'd rather see most of us gone, in a smaller controllable group. But that's still going on. The people are rising up. Over 90% of the people are saying, no, we don't want this war. And how can you go to war when the vast majority of the people are saying no? And the same thing happened in Iraq, too. There's towards the end, everybody says, get out. We're done. We want out of here. And our leadership promised, I'm going to get us out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to close Gitmo and, Guantanamo Bay, all those things. And repeal the Patriot Act and all these things, and he did exactly the opposite, and it was like Bush on steroids. So, so anyway, the problem is that the people are now, I saw that 2 million motorcycle ride to Washington D.C. I mean, you didn't hear about that on the news. You heard about it on the internet and things like that, but you didn't hear about any of these major marches that are going on where people are rising up and figuring it out. So. I think it's just a matter of time before the people rise up and just say enough is enough, and we're tired of being, enslaved and controlled, and we're tired of the manufactured lack and tired of the warring, and we just want to be at peace, and we want to, be kind to each other and the planet, and we don't want all this destruction and mayhem and unbridled greed anymore. And I think that's where we're at right now. There's a big shift happening. People are waking up, and people are starting to stand up and for their divinity and their divine rights.
Well, would it be safe to speculate that if in fact we do get involved in Syria, and if it does possibly escalate into something far more global, that will have like divine interference, so to speak, from ETs, that they will in effect override the prime directive of non-interference and and say, hey, stop this nonsense?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they won't let it escalate to planetary destruction or things of that nature. There's a limit to allowing, and there's other life forms and other beings here on this planet that will not allow that to happen. So try as they may, I don't think they're going to get World War III off the ground, and I don't think they're going to definitely have any nuclear capabilities as far as launching any nukes or anything, because those are going to just be dropped out of the sky or just shut off before they even launch them. The ETs have already proven they can do that. So, it's tricky because they can't do everything for us. They have to honor free will and our divine right to choose our own destiny. So, self-determination as well. So that's part of their universal law. But when we go too far over that mark and we start trespassing on so many other beings and the earth herself, then they'll step in and say, okay, lesson's over. You didn't get it.
Right.
Yeah, end of story. So, it's going to get interesting. And there's a lot of things that they've been diverting, like major solar flares. They put their ships in front of these solar flares and actually expanded their fields and blocked some massive flares coming towards the Earth. And they've done a lot of work on the sun and chilled it down. And they've done a lot of things that are beyond our imagination that NASA's fully aware of. And actually, I got the photographs from NASA of these ships actually doing it. But that being said, they have intervened a lot. They're working a lot through consciousness and energy and through the grids and through frequency and teaching people in their subconscious states and in their dream states. So they're working very intensely on those levels, but they really want to empower us to make our own decisions and make the right decisions and start living in harmony with each other and the planet.
Interesting. Now, I would like to talk about the power of group mind here. We talked just briefly about that motorcycle march in Washington, D.C., and more people are beginning to wake up, so to speak. It's my understanding that the power of group mind, according to Nostradamus, is, very powerful. Matter of fact, I'm pretty certain you've heard of Dolores Cannon and
Yes.
the number of books that she's written. And one of the series of books she's written has to deal with the prophecies of Nostradamus. But anyway, she mentioned that he told her that the power of group mind is so powerful that it's actually squared. So, say if 100 people meditated on peace, harmony, and goodwill on a daily basis, the effect would be as if 10,000 people meditated on this. Would you, in effect, agree on this? That with power group mind is very powerful.
Oh, definitely. And also too, it's like one conscious individual is going to override, hundreds, if not thousands, of unconscious individuals, depending on the level of awareness that they have attained. So it's basically all about frequency and and sympathetic resonance. And when you bring in a really high frequency, which is what is happening right now on the planet, everything else has to rise up, to that occasion, and match that frequency eventually. Or, sometimes it'll pull that frequency down and they'll find a harmonious place in the middle. But now there's so much energy coming in and so many beings involved in this. There's so many other dimensions involved in this as well that are beyond our imagination, that it's, resistance is futile. We are going to the next level. We are going to have this, planetary ascension that's underway, and it's not happening as fast as some of us would like to see it, but it is well underway, and it can't be stopped.
Right. Well, I'd like to ask you this. Being up there in that area near Mount Adams, you've seen UFOs, you've seen orbs as well as other beings going into the mountain. What was your first impression when you were exposed to all of this?
I just thought it was interesting, and we'll see what unfolds, from here. And I always ask them what was, when I was connecting with the ultra dimensionals and the more spiritually technologically advanced ETs, I'd always ask them, who they are and what are their intentions, up front. And in most of the cases, they were here to assist humanity and the Earth, in this transitionary process to help us. But there are a couple groups out there that are regenerate, that are really not in humanity's highest and best good. And unfortunately, those who seek power and control and the greedy ones, that are actually in cahoots with those groups.
We're talking about the Greys and reptilians, right?
Yeah, some of the tall Greys and some of the little Greys are just robots, basically. They're just whoever's controlling them depends on what happens, But the tall Greys, there's some pretty nasty ones out there that I've encountered, and there's also some reptilian beings that aren't, that really care nothing for humanity, and there's some beings above that too that are non-physical, that are pretty nasty, and they care nothing for humanity. They would rather see us gone, and unfortunately, as you move up the hierarchy, in almost any institution, the higher up you go, the darker it gets. And a lot of these people have actually sold their souls to these beings and have done rituals and things of that nature to align themselves with these beings, just because they want power, and wealth, and unfortunately, in doing so, they become disempowered and eventually lose everything, basically.
Now, did you have any interference from the feds? Have you or your staff or your family been the target of intimidation or harassment as a result of having these UFOs fly over the ranch?
Yeah, it's ongoing. It's still happening.
Uh-huh.
We recently had some black helicopters fly over and pulse us with some weird magnetic pulse weapons, and you know, like I broke out with all these weird skin lesions and rashes and things like that, and
Uh-huh.
all spaced out after they hit me with it. And then I found out, you know, in sealing, it looked like an Apache helicopter that was retrofitted with this weird black ball on it and all this other gear.
Hmm.
And it's some kind of a psychotronic or microwave weapon that they're using. And they're doing it to a lot of contactees, a lot of people that are awakening on a spiritual path. They're actually flying over their houses, you know, sometimes late at night, and just pretty much scrambling them. You know, they're I don't know, you know, these are black ops people, and you know, this really needs to be stopped. It's in total contradiction with everything that is America, basically.
But let me ask you this. Why do you think this is happening now? Here we are in the 21st century. More people are awake and or are awake, becoming aware and awakening and so forth. I mean, this is something which could have, foreseeably existed back, probably back in the 80s and 90s. But here we are in the 21st century, and I'm pretty certain the feds know, hey, these people know about our operations, but yet they still persist in doing this.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. What I found out, you know, I've had people up here that actually work for the FBI and other agencies,
Hmm.
and have been up here, and I've had long conversations with them, and they're just trying to gain information and find out who the beings are and what's going on, and
Hmm.
haven't had any problem with them, you know, as far as stopping things or things like that. But
Hmm.
there's kind of a rogue element out there that needs to be put in check, that they're doing all they can to stop this, and they're using deadly force in some cases.
Hmm.
And that group really needs to be put into check. And hopefully our other military guys wake up eventually and stand up for their oath, and you know, in the Air Force and other places, and say, okay, you guys are out of here. You know, you're not going to operate, you know, within our bases or anything else anymore, because what you're doing is extremely anti-American. You know.
Right. Well, did they ever threaten to shut you down there?
Oh yeah, we've been dealing with that for quite a while. I mean, I had like 10 court cases I had to deal with where they were trying to shut me down. So
hmm.
that was on a county level. So that's subsided. But that wasn't fun, you know. But it was a
Hmm.
necessary thing, and you know, for us to just really stand our ground and rise above the nonsense.
Hmm. Okay. Now, it's my understanding that, we're already in 4D, but in your experiences up there at the ECETI Ranch, you've encountered beings who were sixth dimensional, right?
Now we're having eighth dimensional beings come in, which is pretty interesting.
Wow. Would you like to talk about that? It's hard for me to conceptualize a being that's sixth dimensional, but eighth dimensional. I mean, how do they relate to us in 4D now? I mean, here's some the
Well, you
confusion.
know,
Just
when I connect with this being, one of the beings um, that's been coming in, and her name's Sahaja,
hmm.
and it's an eighth dimensional being, and they're working very closely with the Council of 12, the Anunnaki Council of 12,
Hmm.
and they have eighth dimensional beings and Andromedans and other beings on their council.
Hmm.
But you know, they just give me a heads up on what's happening on the higher dimensions. They don't have a lot to say. It's more of a feeling, and you just get totally blissed out, almost beyond uh, being able to handle the energy when you connect with them. It is so intense,
Hmm.
and you get this big, just I'm trying. I can't use that word on the air. I'm trying to think of a big grin on your face. Put it that way. When they come in, you just get this huge smile that almost cramps your face. You know,
Hmm.
and it's just incredible when you feel their energy, just the love coming from them, and the compassion and the frequency. So
Hmm.
they're very, very beautiful beings, very benevolent, and really they're coming in to help. And just knowing that that's happening right now really brings me a lot of peace and harmony in my own life, considering the fact of what we've been dealing with.
Did they ever convey any messages to you with regard to our spiritual development? Are we on the right track, so to speak?
Well, that's a tough one because it depends on individually or collectively. There are people that I never thought would ever get it are starting to wake up, that were very mainstream and very locked into social consciousness, and all of a sudden they're asking all these questions and opening up really fast. So there is a huge movement going on, a grand awakening that's very obvious, but there's still those that are going to try to hang on to the old guard and the old ways and continue with the, manufactured lack and the enslavement through dependency and the censorship and all those other things, and the spy games that we're hearing about today, and that whole control scenario. There are people that are still hanging on to that and really think that's security, but that is going to be their greatest insecurity in the future, because no matter how powerful and clever you think you are, you can't run from karma.
No.
It's not wise to do what they're doing, and anybody with any true wisdom at all would realize that everything is connected. There is a ninth wave coming through called unity consciousness, and whatever you do to humanity, the earth, that's harmful, you're going to have to experience that same pain and suffering that you've dealt out to others. So in a way, I don't have anger towards these people. I actually feel sorry for them and pity them, because when these energies come in, when they really come in hot and heavy, these people are so out of alignment with these energies, and their karma is going to come so swiftly that everything is going to be amplified and intensified, and the manifestation time is going to be quickened. So they've got a really hard road and a very painful road ahead of them, just because of their actions, and they're choosing not to align with the new energies.
Well, I want to ask you this. At the ranch, you interact with higher dimensionals, but you also interact with the Ascended Masters, in particular Mother Mary and Lady Kuan Yin. And it's my understanding that you also interact with these feline entities. Is that correct?
Yes. It's all connected. People don't understand that humanity is just out of the link. For some reason. They're out of the loop. I don't know why, but and I think it's because of all the indoctrination. There was a time when everything was connected, and the nature kingdoms and the nature intelligences and man and the elf and fairy kingdoms and the ultra dimensionals and the masters, all of that was interconnected, and we all worked in harmony. But now there's this huge divide, and a lot of naysaying and a lot of ignorance concerning, these other beings and their existence. And, to make it to the point where they try to make people insane who are actually having these experiences. I had a psychologist here that was meditating, and one of these fairies flew right up in her face, and she was with a friend of hers, and it just sat there and fluttered in her face for a while and then took off. And it just turned her upside down, and and she goes, "Oh my God," she goes, "I medicate people for this, and I said, she goes, "What do I do now?" And I said, "Stop medicating people, start listening to them." So the veils between worlds are very thin right here, because it's on two, connecting ley lines, it's a vortex here. And so the veils between worlds are very thin. So these beings are appearing very easily to people. And some people are very connected to the nature kingdom and the inner earth, and they have those experiences. And there's other people that are connected to the Ascended Masters, and because their consciousness is focused on that, they have those experiences. And there's some people that are connected to the ultra dimensionals and the off-world visitors, and that connection is happening here as well as the ability to see their ships. They've been doing dazzle duty here for a long time and showing their ships to people who come here.
I want to talk about the Ascended Masters, if you don't mind. I mean, we
Sure.
call them Ascended Masters because they ascended their humanity. Would that be a safe analogy?
Yeah, well, if you have Christ consciousness or Buddha consciousness, and that's the level That's like 5D, and that's the level where man knows himself to be God and God knows himself to be man. It's the merge of the two, or woman, whichever. I don't want to leave that out, but it's the merge, of the two, and so it's that midpoint, and then as you go up the vibrational continuum, you become less identified with identity and the physical and things of that nature, and you're more identified with spirit or source.
Interesting. Okay, well, I'd like to talk about your understanding of the crystal children being born now. Would you agree that these children hold the key to our future?
Yeah, there's so many different children. There's golden childs being born. There's indigo kids. There's and you can see it in their auric fields. Some children have incredible green field around them, and they're healers. The green ray is the healing energy, and it's also the same energy that comes in when the felines appear. It's the same healing energy. It's more of a green, bright green energy, a healing energy, and they're the protectors of the gods. We've known them in ancient times as Sekhmet and Narissa and Narsringa, and there's all these paintings, with these massive lion beings sitting with the gods, and the gods are sitting around them, and they're known as the protectors of the gods. And some are 7D, some are 6 and 5D. So the 7D ones look like lions. They're very big. They're very tall. They're humanoid lion beings. The 6D ones are more of a panther type of being that's about 12 foot tall and, upright. And the other ones, the 5D ones, look more like cat beings, more like a humanoid cat being. So it's quite interesting when you meet these beings. But they've been well recorded throughout history, and they're known as the protectors of the gods, or they would protect humanity as well. And they're coming in right now to assist us in this process.
Interesting. So I'm wondering why there's no reference of this, at least I think, in ancient literature, except, with the exception of maybe the Egyptians, right?
Oh, no, it's all throughout India.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's posters, paintings of them that they've remade, from ancient paintings. So it's in all their Vedic scriptures, and they talk, there's a lot of stories about Narsringa where they would, a village, there would be bandits coming into the village, and the village would start praying to Narsringa, and as the bandits entered the village, they would just get knocked off their horses, and their clothing would get shredded, and they'd run away, and that was Narsringa coming in, which are these feline beings that were more 5D beings that would come in and take care of business, so
right.
There's a lot of stories. There's ancient paintings with Lakshmi and some of the other goddesses, sitting on the laps of these very large humanoid lion beings, Narissa, and there's I'm not getting the names right. There's like.
Well, what comes to mind here is Ganesh. Also, that's the elephant.
Yeah.
And I'm, tying this in here with what we're talking about. I probably make the assessment that the ancient Hindus had a strong connection with the ETs, because if you look at their gods and goddesses, they are a mixture of half human and half animal, right?
Well, there were a lot of tinkering when the gods were here. The Anunnaki did a lot of tinkering, trying to create a form, that would best serve their needs. And they did a lot of, I think it's Samara, I think they call them, they're half human, half animal creatures. The Minotaur,
right.
Half bull, half man. There's half horse, half man, half goat, half man. All of these different beings that they worked with, in the past existed. And so that might be where a lot of those ancient gods come from. And then also, too, they say that Ganesh, the reason they put an elephant human together there, because it represents that staying power, that strength, you know, breaking through obstacles and things like that. So they attribute that to an elephant. So that's why they put an elephant head. There's all these different stories about it, but you know, in truth, there are a lot of these beings that actually did exist, and they were experiments, and some didn't work out so well, and a lot of them were done away with.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, well, I'd like to talk about the divine feminine here. You know, some people are unable to wrap their heads knowing that creation is both masculine and, you know, feminine. What's your assessment on this? Are we going to see more of a heart center opening up in the years to come?
Yes, you know, there's a masculine feminine balance within everybody, and it's a subjective objective balance, and you know, in order to receive information from source or spirit, you have to be subjective to it. And so women by nature are more subjective, and they receive guidance much easier. They're much more intuitive, and just by nature, not all women, but I'm just saying that as a whole. And so really, to have a more balanced society right now, we totally got imbalanced with this patriarchal program. So you have this objective consciousness, which is just the ego, and it's usually male running the show, and totally disconnected from spirit, you know. And when you're connected to spirit, you realize, you know, we're all one big family here, you know. And women usually don't send their children to war. They don't send their husbands to war. They don't send other people's children or husbands to war. It just doesn't happen. But a lot of women have been subdued and pushed down and not allowed to express that, you know, that energy. But I think right now what's happening, there is a huge feminine energy. Some people call it the Shekinah energies. It has to do with like Mother Mary, Buffalo Calf Woman, even Mary Magdalene. A lot of feminine goddess type energies are coming in from the ancient past. There's a huge movement right now to bring balance back to the earth. And because it's so imbalanced, there is a huge surge of feminine energy to try to bring balance back to the planet.
Interesting. So, in effect, these lower centers, first, second, and third chakra, you know, they're pretty much going to be done away with, right? We're going to put more focuses from the heart chakra up.
They're going to be brought back into balance. You know, love needs to be flowing through all 7 chakras, and they have their purpose. You know, and your first chakra is basically survival. You know, it's the one connected to the earth, and then the second chakra is sex, and the third chakra is power. So basically, this civilization is mainly run on survival, sex, and power, and that's how the network, you know, you can call it the Archon network or the controllers or whoever they are. That's how they control humanity, you know, through the media, through manipulating them through their first 3 chakras, you know, survival, sex, and power. You know, you should be very scared. You know, it's red alert or orange alert. The terrorists are coming after you.
Right.
You know, we'll protect you. You know, you need to, well, don't worry, you know, just keep paying us, you know, and we'll protect you. And, you know, all that stuff, you know, the second chakra, you know, it's like you need to drink the right beer and drive the right car and have the fancy, you know, abode and everything to snag the woman, you know, the bronze woman in the bikini, you know, and it's all based on outer appearances and external stuff, you know. And then through power, you know, all the competition and all the other nonsense in sports and everything else, it's power over others, you know, I'm the most powerful and everything else. All those programs that are running right now are to trap people into the first 3 chakras and the external programs that are going on. And the thing that threatens them most is the internal. You know, they don't want people coming from the heart, going within, making their own personal connection to God, Creator, Spirit, whatever you want to call it. They don't want people, you know, coming from love, you know, and loving everyone and everything and seeing the Creator in all creation. You know, that's an end to their program. And so they're doing all they can to keep us from coming from the heart, you know, and the other. But what I see is these other chakras there's going to be less of a focus on the first 3 chakras and more on the heart and the, you know, the you know, love spoken through the fifth chakra, sixth chakra is God seen in all things, and seventh chakra is I am God, where you do the total immersion and oneness, so there's a lot more movement in those areas right now. And
yeah, because you do some work up there where you help people in effect connect with their higher selves, right?
yes, we take people through, first we clear any unseen negative influences and make a safe space or a sacred space, and then we find out who their main teacher and guide is, and then clear up any past life trauma that's happened, and then bring awareness to the lives that they have had, very high vibrational lifetimes, so they can draw upon those lives. And then we go from age 1 and pull any major blocks or patterns, childhood traumas out, and then do an initiation at the end. And these sessions have actually been filmed by scientists, and the energies that come into the room just blew their minds, and they watch people's bodies pixelate out into light, and you can heal things very quickly and gracefully, and you can see the energies of the beings and the vortexes that are created during this process.
How, if I can ask you this question, how therapeutic are these, or how healing are these sessions? I mean, I'm certain that, for the most part, some people get very emotional when they connect with an experience they had X number of years ago, because I think some people call these sessions similar to birthing experiences.
Yeah, it's pretty, some people go through it very quickly and gracefully, and that's most of the cases because of the energy that they're held in. And some people have a real huge release, every once in a while we get somebody that just, and a lot of tears will come up, in the process, but it comes up very fast and goes through. So, and just ecstatic joy behind that, comes in. So it is a lot of movement going on, a lot of emotions, a lot of charge out of these issues is being released. And so it is pretty intense, but afterwards people are just blissed out for about 3 or 4 days for no reason.
Interesting. Now, let me ask you this, James. In your understanding of the fact that, our planet is ascending, in effect, the reincarnation cycle is pretty much done away with for this planet, right?
I think people are still incarnating, but a lot of them are coming in from very high planes and dimensions to help in this process. And I think as the planet continues to escalate in frequency, those of a lower, baser nature are not going to be frequency specific to where the planet's going. So people ask where all these beings are going to go, all these dark hearts that don't want to make the shift. They'll continue in another realm, probably in the astral level or whatever, and they'll have an experience there to finish off their lessons, but they won't be able to come back to the earth.
Well, asking on the same line of thought here, I'm going to ask you this. Are you basically seeing us evolve towards an avatar level eventually?
Definitely eventually. That's where I think there are some beings that, what I was told, which is really interesting, that there are some beings that have just been so heinous and so rebellious and so negative, they've created so much trauma that there's going to be some beings that are just going to be basically their identity, you might say, or whatever, is just going to be dissolved back into the God substance, and they're not going to exist anymore, as that being. So that's going to be interesting. And I've heard talk about that, and it's written in the ancient scriptures, but we'll see where that goes. I don't know. I think, I don't know what you do with some of these people.
Right. You
can't let them out. You can't let them loose, on another planet, with primitive people, because they're just going to trash it, So, I would think there's a limit to allowing where the higher dimensions just say, okay, enough, and just kind of recycle that soul, you might say.
Right. Okay, now in the book, I want to touch back on the book here, Becoming Gods. There's you repeatedly cite that consciousness creates reality, that we magnetize the people and events from the thoughts we put out.
Hmm.
And as we further migrate, let's say, to a higher dimension, how important will this truth be when we create our reality without the time lag, let's say in 3D? Because, in 5D and beyond, basically your thought creates a reality instantaneously, right?
Yeah, it does. And that's why you have to master, your emotions and free will. And that's what this plane is all about. It's demonstrating, free will and emotions, which is energy and motion, and that's part of the creationary process. So,
Hmm.
we definitely need to master that and, control our emotions and but that doesn't mean suppress them. That means to, heal and release the past and learn to, you know, keep a vigil and keep a focus on creating a more positive reality.
Okay. Now, with your interaction with ETs, are some people out there, and I'm going to mention this, and may be controversial, but I'll go ahead and take a stab at it. But
Mhm.
there are some people out there, such as Billy Meyer, who have stated that they've been, especially privy with interacting with people or beings such as the Pleiadians.
Mhm.
Um, but yet there are others out there who have had encounters with ETs, such as George Adamski, who was in contact with the Venusians, Daniel Fry, Howard Menger, and Carlos Diaz, and of course yourself. And I'm pretty certain there are many others out there. But what's without sounding controversial here, what's your response to someone who says, well, you know what, I'm the only genuine contactee to have interaction with ETs, such as the Pleiadians?
Yeah, I've already responded to that. I've had several bouts with Michael Horn, and sad the person, he's so narcissistic he can't even
Right.
realize that he didn't do too well in those bouts. But I brought him up to him. I said, how can you claim that Billy is the only true prophet of God and the
Right.
only contactee when contact's happening all over the planet?
Hmm.
And you've got all these incredible yogis and lamas and enlightened beings and these enlightened children
Hmm.
and prophecies, a DNA line that opens up, that we all have that within us. And these kids are total prophets coming in. They know what's going on. They're being able to see through the dimensions and the future and the past and everything. So
Hmm.
for him to say I'm the one and only and try to claim an exclusivity on God and ET and then charging people to join his group, it's good business to devalue or demonize all the other groups, to keep your group on top and going. And it's just another cult, another religion. But
Hmm.
they've accused their gameplay is to accuse everybody else of being cults and religions and pointing, one finger at others when, all the rest of their fingers are pointing back at themselves. But
Hmm.
it's just totally illogical. It's beyond ridiculous to say that he's the only contactee, the only true prophet of God, and I don't think anybody who claims exclusivity on any of these things is totally off course,
Hmm.
and it's a very disempowering message to people, like saying you can't make your own personal connection with God, Creator, Spirit. You can't connect with these higher dimensional beings, and you're not a higher dimensional being. You're something other.
Hmm.
And we are all multidimensional beings existing on a vibrational continuum. And once we get past being just a body and a personality, we're a spirit, and that spirit has many dimensions to it.
Hmm.
So it's a very disempowering message. It's a very um, there's no reason to continue with this. It's old news. It's just another messiah, another religion.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, another go-between and another suppression of truth. which is contact is happening all over the planet right now. And, most of these children, we just had a whole bunch of children here in a workshop, and they're all drawing pictures of ETs and spaceships. And they said, oh, yeah, we talk all the time, and they see them when other people don't see them. And then you take a picture where they're pointing and the ship's there, so.
Right.
So, I mean, there's just, it makes no sense at all, the claims that they're making. And I wish people would just hold them accountable for it and wake up and just say, we're done being manipulated.
Okay. Is it your understanding that we are poised for a reality the likes of which we've never seen before in the years to come, James?
Oh, yeah, the next couple of years, it's going to be unbelievable, the things that are going to happen. So the veils between worlds are getting very thin. They're coming down. The prime directive is pretty much gone. That's over with because of the other beings that did interfere with us on a mass scale. So they're coming in to take care of that. And so we're going to see some amazing transitions and things in the skies. And you're seeing it on a physical level now. You're seeing a lot of the leadership folding in on themselves and being exposed for who they are and all these other things that are happening. But, that's just on the physical level. There's amazing things happening on the other levels. And everything begins in conscious, as I said. Everything on this dimension owes its existence to the next dimension up. So if there's all these changes on the other dimensions going on, they're going to bleed down into the physical here, and that's what we're in the middle of experiencing.
Interesting. Well, is there anything else that we haven't touched here or covered that you'd like to talk about in the closing hour?
Well, I think the main thing that we've been receiving here is that, the Andromedans, the Syrians, there's an Orion Council of Light, the Pleiadians. I know I'm missing a few. The Arcturians. All of these beings are collectively working together right now, and some of them have full use of creational energies. Their technology is beyond our imagination. And they're coming in right now to assist humanity, and as well as the Supreme Council of the Anunnaki are returning with their group as well. So, and they're very benevolent, very spiritually advanced beings. They're not coming to enslave us or anything else. And there's nothing to worry about that's coming. It's what's already here and what's been here over the years that we need to focus on and pay attention to. And that's the war and disease profiteers and the other regenerate ETs and the people that serve them. That's the problem that we're dealing with right now. It's nothing coming from the heavens.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, we are approaching the end of the hour here, James. Can you remind the audience of your website and how anyone can contact you to visit the ECETI Ranch?
Yes, just go to the website, ECETI.org, and the books and all the DVDs are there if you want to check those out, as well as some amazing speakers that have come up here over the years are all available. Dolores Cannon and Mary Rodwell and a lot of the people that you were talking about earlier. Brooks Agnew, I can go on, Renato Longato, William Henry, all these people, Lisa Renee, have been up here. And have experienced the ships themselves and are aware of what's going on. So anyway, but if you want to check out the website, ECETI.org, and all the contact information is there. If you want to find, set up for a reservation, or if you want to come visit the ranch, the contact information is there, the phone number and the email.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I want to thank you again, James, for your time here. And it's been a pleasure, and I hope to contact you or speak to you again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Take care then.
All right.
Bye-bye. That's it for today's program. If you know someone who's not a member, encourage them to visit holisticadvocate.com and subscribe. Or, if they prefer, encourage them to donate instead. Any contribution will be greatly appreciated. Thank you. You're listening to As Above, So Below Radio.